Joining us right now is former New Hampshire Senator Judd Gregg and former North Dakota Senator Byron Dorgan. Gentlemen, good to see you. Thanks so much for joining us. Whose side do you take in the scope of national security for the United States? Judd Gregg, kick us off here.
Well, this is a war that involves an asymmetrical enemy, and the only way you're going to find out what they're doing is through intelligence gathering. And the only way you're going to stop them is to find out who they are and what they're going to do before they do it. So you have to have a very robust intelligence gathering capability. So I think Christie is absolutely right. We have very good protections in place for the way we do these wiretaps. But if you don't do these, collect this type of electronic intelligence, you're never going to find out where these folks are, and you're not going to be able to get to them before they get to us.
Byron Dorgan, you agree with that?
Yeah, pretty much. You have to. I mean, obviously, this is a serious threat to our country, and you have to gather information and intelligence. You also, and it's very important, you have to have protections with respect to that, because there are times when governments will do much more than the American people would allow or would even understand that they're doing.
Right. So Senator Gregg, let me get your take. I want to get your both of your takes on who came out a winner last night and what were your big takeaways.
Well, my view is that there was no clear winner, but that if you're going to look at who accomplished their purpose, I think you've got to go with Jeb Bush. He sees this not as a sprint but a marathon. He wants to establish that he can win, that he's substantive, and that he can govern. And I thought last night he moved the ball down the field without being distracted. I thought Dr. Carson made the best statements, was the most eloquent, and probably Scott Walker got the best one-liner in. But they all did a good job, and I think it's good for our party that we have such a substantive field.
Senator Dorgan, what do you think? Who do you think the Democrats are most worried about?
I've always thought when you have very large debates, it's kind of a cross between a beauty pageant and a talent contest. But I really thought last night was more interesting than that. I think Marco Rubio did well. I think John Kasich did well. The fact is, those who decide to run for president have significant talents, and most people in this country didn't know much about many of those candidates, and all of them, I'm sure, advanced their cause last night. But I think especially Marco Rubio, John Kasich, maybe Christie, those three probably had an edge last night.
Gentlemen, I'm with Dagen McDowell and John Bussey from the Wall Street Journal. Did we learn anything new, guys?
Certainly not from Trump, and I wanted to address both Senators Gregg and Dorgan. Gentlemen, you didn't bring up Donald Trump at all. Were you unimpressed, Senator Gregg?
Well, I think Trump sort of trumped himself by being himself. As a very practical matter, I think his excess in the way he responded to a couple of the questions showed a very lack of presidential character. And, I mean, clearly he is touching a nerve in America, which is that people are very frustrated and they're tired of Washington, they're tired of the incompetence in Washington. But in the end, I don't see that he's going to be the person people turn to try to correct that.
Senator Gregg, I mean, this was a fascinating exchange between Christie and Rand Paul. It dealt with privacy, which is at kind of a critical element of the debate today in Washington and in the public. Mike Hayden, the former CIA and NSA director, says, look, we can't ever really finally do something about cybersecurity problems around the world until we solve this privacy debate. Is that something that you would agree with? Would you agree with Michael Hayden's view that this privacy issue is a central one in the public debate? It is unresolved, and it has to be resolved before we can really tackle the larger issues of cybersecurity?
No, I don't. I think the privacy issue is important. Obviously, it's critical, and the First Amendment is critical. But the simple fact is that the threat is so severe that we have to have an intelligence gathering capability that's extraordinarily robust. And the way you do that is you have to have good capability in the electronic gathering of intelligence. And so I very much strongly support strong capabilities with the CIA and the NSA and the DIA. And I think it's been undermined, unfortunately, by some of the statements by some of the members of my own party.
Right. Let me ask you both, Senators, about the other news last night, and that was Democratic Senator Chuck Schumer announcing his decision to vote against the Iran nuclear deal. Obviously a big blow to the Obama administration, but Senator Dorgan, does it change things?
Well, first of all, Chuck's a friend, but I'm very disappointed to hear that. And I don't know that it changes things. My expectation is that they're going to work hard to get the votes. I support the agreement. But do you mind if I go back to Trump just for a moment?
Sure, do it.
You know, I'm a Democrat, so I've been joking for some long while that my Republican ticket, if they wanted my advice, was Trump-Palin. But the fact is, Trump is someone of considerable skills. I mean, communication skills, and he's showing it on the trail. And so I thought he did fine last night. When I talked about who I thought probably won the debate, I think Kasich, Rubio. Did quite well as well.
Well, Senator Dorgan, Trump this morning or in the last several hours has been retweeting people's comments saying, I'm a Democrat, but I'm voting for Trump. I'm a lifelong liberal, and I'm voting for Trump. Everybody seems to look at Donald Trump and think that he's a threat to the Republican establishment, but he's somewhere in the middle, and he could draw voters from both sides.
You're exactly right about that. He's appealing to, as Judd just said, there's a lot of people out there that don't like what's going on, and he's sort of an agent of change. But look, this is a long race. This is not a sprint, and this was the first debate in a long process. And the folks on the stage last night, they've got to navigate through very conservative primaries. And I think they kind of get too far to the right in order to get through those primaries, because then this country's really center or center-right slightly.
Right.
And there's got to be a powerful pull back to the political center.
It's interesting. Senator Gregg, do you agree with that? I don't know if I agree with that Trump could be taking. I think he really is a negative for the Republican Party if he goes independent. I mean, I recognize he could take voters from both sides, but I feel like it's much worse for the Republicans if he goes independent. Senator Gregg?
I think you're absolutely right. I think were he to run as an independent, it would absolutely probably guarantee the Democratic nominee the election, much like what happened when Ross Perot ran. So, but I want to get back to what Chuck Schumer has said. And I think Byron's probably right. They'll probably get this. They're obviously going to pass the motion to disapprove. But the issue is the veto. Can it be sustained? And the president's going to need 34 Democrats to sustain that veto in the Senate. Chuck is extremely influential. And as Byron knows, I think this raises the bar considerably for the president to maintain those 34 votes.
So you think then there is a chance that this can get reversed because of what we saw last night from Chuck Schumer?
Yes. I mean, he's the most influential senator in the Senate right now on the Democratic side of the aisle. He's very highly regarded on both sides of the aisle. And so his opinion counts on something like this. And the president can't afford to lose what it basically is the key operative in the Senate on the Democratic side.
Right.
But while I'm disappointed with that decision of Chuck's, I don't think he's going to be out campaigning. I mean, this is the kind of thing, as Judd knows, in the Senate, these kinds of issues, you don't go to your colleagues to say, here's how I think you should vote on this issue. This is a very big, very important issue. Chuck has decided what he's going to do. I don't think he's going to be campaigning to convince others to do the same thing.
We'll see. All right.